Uh, can you hear me, Josh?
Yeah, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. How are you?
Good. You holding in there?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, we'll see what happens in the fall.
Yeah. All things considered, right? Yeah. Well, are you outside somewhere?
Yes, this is my outside office that
Oh,
works a lot better with. My wife has a constant video conferences during the day, and my kids are quite loud. I normally, before I was trying to work in my basement,
yeah.
um, which is pretty good, except there's like no insulation between the basement and the upstairs. So I can hear like everything. It's
Yeah.
kind of distracting.
Yeah, I always have
So
my little one always runs in like every time I'm in any meeting. She like senses it. She has like a spider senses, like tingling. She just
yeah,
runs down to like jump on me, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So it can get kind of
yeah, I understand. Fortunately, most I don't really have a lot of meetings, and the ones I do have, we don't do video. We just do audio calls, or like we'll do like a screen share to show something like on the software or whatever, like a Word document, but
cool. Yeah.
get dressed up or anything usually.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have video for the longest time because the IT had run out. As you can imagine, everyone was going online, and they only had
Yeah,
like
it's hard to get the cameras, right?
yeah. So I had to go and actually exactly what you're saying. I had to take a DSLR, and I had to like hook it up, and I had to get
Oh, okay.
yeah tech savvy to be able to figure out how to get something streaming, which was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I think we got two others.
Let's see if I can go back to.
Here we go. I can promote to panelists. There we go.
Ah, okay.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, Josh.
How are you? Nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you too. Just working. I just got a new laptop, so figuring out Zoom on my new laptop and everything is like first call. So
Oh, yeah? Great. Uh,
Josh, I haven't seen you in like 4.5 months.
I know. It's crazy, right? I forgot what I looked like. I was like,
We have morning calls, and this is the first time Josh's cameras worked. So for, however long we've been in COVID, we've had him on the phone as this like bubble.
yeah, I'm a floating bubble in all the
Uh-huh.
meetings. Yeah, no, so I tried a couple of weeks ago, and I think if you remember, Missy, I had like really bad issues with the audio. So I finally had to do some MacGyvering, but I think I'm here, so it's awesome.
Right on. Right. I'm gonna bow out for a minute. I mean, I'll be here, but I'll just go off camera.
Cool.
Yeah, I had to get some audio issues too with my. I just got this laptop and the speaker, like, it's like so quiet. It's just not even hearable. But I was able to hook it up to an external speaker. But
yeah, I ended up doing a whole rig. I don't know if you can see, but I got like a speaker and a whole setup. Hey, John.
Good evening.
Hi, John.
How are you, Noah?
Oh, pretty good. How you doing?
Good. Everybody in your extended family doing okay?
Yeah, for the most part, when we're not trying to kill each other.
That's good.
Just my kids, are getting a little stir crazy, but
yeah, I can imagine.
But
we're gonna go and visit our son tomorrow in Iowa. That's our first sort of big adventure.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out if we could make it to New Jersey without too much interactions with people.
Yeah.
But
Noah, are your kids back? Because I think we both went to NCCC, right?
Sorry, say that again.
Are your kids your kids in the UM system? Or were they at one point?
No, they're actually it's STEAM.
Never mind. I swear I have seen you before, though, like floating around the halls of North Campus Children's Center. Maybe I made that up.
I don't think so, but
Maybe
no,
doppelganger.
no, my kids are in well, they would be going into first grade and third grade at Northside, or also known as Ann Arbor Steam now.
Uh-huh.
Right on.
Missy, it's hard to hear you. I don't know if anybody else hears you. You sounded faint and a little bit of an echo.
Can you hear me okay now?
That sounds better.
Okay. It might be because I was eating food. Wow. Oh, don't tell.
I've totally been picking at some food off to the side too, from time to time. I'm gonna try to see if I can get the camera to get a little bit, because I feel like I'm a little dark in this shot. So I'll be right back.
Yeah, hopefully I won't get too dark here towards the end of the meeting, but
We see you
you
fine.
can still, it's much better than being in my house to avoid
Yes.
other people.
John, do you know if we can remotely participate in the hearing tomorrow?
I don't know. You're talking about the MPSC hearing, right?
Yeah.
That I don't know. I just saw the email from John Freeman about trying to contact candidates. I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to do that. I don't even know what time it starts. I might try to do it early in the morning.
Starts at 3. I'm having the darndest time figuring out. It says you can do written testimony on the state site, but it doesn't have any call-in, and I find that really exceptional. Governor's order that we
Well,
can't.
Open Meetings Act would require it, wouldn't it?
I would have thought so, but I think that they're letting people actually into the state house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, if you do come across that, let me know.
Yeah. Okay. We can ask maybe tonight.
Great suggestion.
Josh, did you get feedback from commissioners whether or not they're gonna be attending, and whether or not we're gonna have a quorum?
I did not get anything from any of the commissioners. I did see a lot of people RSVP though. So as far as the actual invite goes, I can get a list. Give me 1 second.
I think both Carlene and Jay said they were going to attend.
Yeah. Yep. And I had Bridget say she was going to attend. Ember said she was going to attend. Robert George, are there new commissioners actually?
Yeah, he's here.
Yep. And who else did I get? I think that's everyone who said that they were going to be here.
Josh, I just got a message from Shoshana. She said she joined via the Zoom link. She didn't get a request for a password. Do you see or hear me? Do you see her? I don't see her.
I don't either. Let's go ahead. Hold on here. Let's promote. Here's.
Oh, there's Ember.
Yep.
Yeah, Josh, you have a few people in the attendee.
It does say there's 13 participants, so are there more people hiding that we can't see?
Yeah, you have some attendees who are in.
Yeah, there are non-commissioner attendees that I know of, at least a couple of them.
So I think, John, from what we were learning, I think we moved them back to, what would we do once we admit them as far as if they're part of the audience? Do you remember?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, you guys. This is Shoshana. Can you hear me?
Ah, there she is. Oh, there. Yeah, good. Hey, Joshua, we're just waiting for everybody to sign in. I have a procedural question. I sent you an email this afternoon. Is Ember actually officially able to participate as a commissioner tonight since her reappointment is pending? Isn't there like a 90-day clause, or does that only apply to chair or co-chair or things like that?
Yeah, so I checked with Christine, and she said the mayor is going to go ahead and put up her name in August, and so she can go ahead and participate while we're waiting, basically, to get that up to council.
I'm gonna close a window so I don't get noise in just a second.
Okay, so I joined as an attendee, but I needed a person ID period.
Ooh, I think we might be getting.
Thank you, Josh.
Okay, hold on. I think I can mute everybody.
Hey, you guys, it's Shoshana. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me,
Yes, Shoshana, we can hear you.
Shoshana?
Should we call the meeting to order? We're already 4 after, I guess, officially. We'll wait another minute since a couple of people just joined.
There we go.
Josh, you're doing a good job at Command Central there.
Yeah, thanks. I got a lot of things going on.
So it's 6:05. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I have a script that I need to read here, which all commissions and boards are using because of the fact we're meeting virtually. So let me start with the first, and then there's a second one that I have that I'll read just prior to public comment. So welcome to the June 21st, 2020 electronic meeting of the Energy Commission. This meeting is in accordance with executive orders from the governor to effect social distancing and mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We intend to conduct this meeting similar to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comments will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, that's going to be at the beginning of the meeting and at the end. Please call 1-888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID. And Josh, do you know the meeting ID? The one that I have here is 924-7596-9823. Is that the correct one?
Yep.
Okay. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN channel 16. AT&T Channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn. So, why don't we go ahead and do roll call, and then after that I have a couple of things that are more or less housekeeping kinds of things because of the fact that this is an electronic meeting. And also, before we get into the meat of the agenda, we have a couple of new commissioners, one of whom is, I can see on the meeting, and maybe the other two, I don't know for sure. And we'll introduce them right after we do the roll call. So Josh, do you want to go ahead and do the roll call?
Yeah, sure. Commissioner Levin,
Here.
Commissioner Mirsky,
Here.
Commissioner Zocker,
Here.
Commissioner McComber,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy,
Here.
Councilmember Eaton,
Here.
Commissioner Colvin Garcia, Commissioner Colvin Garcia.
You need to unmute.
Here.
And then our new commissioner, Commissioner George.
Here.
Do we have a quorum?
I believe we do, yes.
We do. Okay, good. Okay, so we have two new youth commissioners. So Robert York is one, and we also have another commissioner that I thought was going to join. His name is Julian Singleton. I don't know if, Josh, you see him. He had indicated that he was going to attend.
Yeah, I'm not seeing him in the attendees list. We do have. Yeah, I'm not seeing him in the attendees list.
Okay. Robert, you want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of information about your background, and then we'll all welcome you after that.
Of course, Commissioner. My name is Robert George. Last name is George, like George Washington. It's German spelling, but kind of that English pronunciation. I am a relatively new resident of Ann Arbor. I moved here about 1.5 years ago. I work for the Michigan Labor District Council in Lansing as the Director of Advocacy, so I deal with policy development and movement of market share in regards to our construction trade. We represent primarily construction workers, people that do road work. That's a little bit about what I do. I graduated from Albion College in 2019, and I'm a proud resident of 4th Ward here in Ann Arbor. Good to see the council member on as well. Just of note, it was great to work with Councilmember Eaton and the mayor to pass responsible contracting policy last night. So that's just a little bit about me and what I've been up to. Glad to be here.
Great, welcome. So you may have picked up, Ember is up for reappointment, and also maybe, like I said, I have a couple of housekeeping things and I wanted to go through those first, and that'll explain a couple of other things. So first of all, I wanted to remind everyone and our audience that Commissioner Shoshana Lenski resigned from the commission effective the end of May. That's why I, as vice chair, am leading tonight's meeting. I really want to thank Shoshana for all of her service on the Energy Commission and her public service in general, and her leadership as chair this last year, and of course her passion for sustainability and for her passion for the city of Ann Arbor. And we all wish her well. We know that she's juggling a lot of things with her job and her family and everything else, and we hope that she finds a way to stay engaged with us and with the city of Ann Arbor later on, and with the Energy Commission. And I think she's going to offer some public comments. So let me just cover a couple of other important points. So we're going to be electing a new chair tonight. And that individual then will take over leadership of the meeting. That's a little bit later in the agenda, so we'll see how that goes. Then, as we recognized earlier, as I said earlier, this meeting is being broadcast on CTN, and that broadcast can be delayed. It's typically, I guess, not too bad, but it can be delayed apparently up to 30 to 45 seconds. So when waiting for public comment, we will have a bit of a pause to make sure that we're allowing publics to contribute to the meeting and provide comments. Another request that we have of commissioners is that we stay on camera so you are visible just as you would be in an in-person meeting. We all know that communication is not just verbal, and so it's important that we communicate the same way we would as if we were meeting in person. Just a couple of other points. We will be taking voice votes and to raise our hands on camera so that we can be sure that we're registering votes properly. Excuse me, I have to flip back and forth here. We ask that you mute your microphone if you anticipate a lot of background noise. You can certainly do so, and I see most of you are doing that already, but it's not necessarily necessary, but if there is an echo or background noise, please do that. Another consideration is that if you're having internet connection problems, you may turn off your camera rather than you losing us and we losing you. So that's one thing that you might do. That's happened to me before on Zoom meetings, so consider that. And then lastly, if anyone wants to share a file or a document, please get it to Josh, or you could send it to me, but either Josh and I as host and co-host, I have the ability to share documents. So if you would get that to Josh, and we will share that. We've covered all of that. What I'd like to do now is ask if everybody has seen the agenda and if we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Any motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move to approve it.
Do we have a second? All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Okay, so Josh, we're going to move on to public comment. And again, I have a statement to read that's again being used uniformly across the city. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes. Please call 1-888. So that's 1-888-788-0099 and enter the meeting ID 924-5796-9823. This information is also displayed on the meeting agenda and the video feed. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand. So there's a raise hand function. One by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. So Josh will call out the last 3 digits of your phone number. And in order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. So Josh, you want to take over control and see if we have some public comments? I think we have a few maybe.
Sure. Let's see. We do have one. Here we go. All right. So phone number 922. You are live.
Hello, it's Shoshana.
Hey, Shoshana.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, well, thanks. I wanted to say thank you, John, for the words that you said at the beginning. I didn't feel right just leaving my last meeting as we left it I think it was our last meeting in March, right before everything shut down. And then obviously the email that I sent out to everybody here. So I wanted to call in and just say a few words in person. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew, what I shared in the email. I have served on the commission for 7 years, and my appointment was expiring at the end of May. And as John said, I have a lot going on in my life. I decided at this time not to seek reappointment from the mayor, so I let him know. And I wanted to just tell all of you how grateful I am for the opportunity to work with you over the last 7 years, and to our former members of the commission as well that I worked with in the earlier years on the commission. I have really learned a lot from all of you, lots of different things, leadership skills and technical skills and Robert's rules and energy things. And I'm very grateful for the experience. And I look forward to staying involved, in different ways. And thank you all for the time together. So that's all. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Shoshanna.
Thank you.
We're going to miss you.
Thanks.
Miss you.
Josh, anyone else? Oh, Bridget had something she wanted to say, I think, and maybe someone else.
Yeah, I just want to thank Shoshanna for her service. Shoshanna, I really appreciate you stepping up, especially in the last year, to take on being chair. And I think that you did a great job of putting in place some organizational tools that help keep things moving forward. I wish you all the best in all of your many endeavors right now.
Thank you.
Something that most of you may not know is that Shoshanna and I met before every meeting, and we plan the meetings. She obviously interfaces with Josh and setting the agenda and things like that. So there's a lot of things that she's done also behind the scenes that you may not have recognized. So we appreciate that very much. Josh, someone else? Any raised hands? Any star nines?
Is the only raised hand I am seeing right now. Oh, Colvin Garcia.
Shoshanna, I am really sad to see you go, to see you leave this this group. You have been a really strong contributor to the group, and one of my original, when I decided to put in my application to join, I had attended a couple of meetings of Energy Commission meetings, and just observing the dynamics of the group and looking at like all the different members. Your presence on the commission is one of the reasons that I wanted to join as well. I just wanted to let you know that I'm very sorry to see you go, and I just want to wish you luck and everything that you're taking on right now, that you have in play right now. And I really hope that you do, when you have a chance, come back and participate and contribute.
Thank you.
Josh, anyone else?
That's all I see right now.
Okay.
Hey, Josh, I just wanted to mention I'm on. John, I'm on. Chuck Hookham joined via phone.
Okay, good.
Great.
Thanks, Chuck. So Josh, you want to deliver the energy report, and then we'll also get reports from commissioners once you start us off.
Yeah, for sure. So even with all the pandemic and everything going on, very kind of crazy busy time right now, we've been able to do quite a lot in the office. The 820, as many of you probably know, the 820 plan was passed. And Missy Stultz will be giving a update on that a little bit later in the agenda. On top of that, we have actually managed to do some solar installs, including one at North Side. It's going to be about 23.53 kilowatts, offsetting close to 100% of all of the energy on site. It also will have a battery system. So the really nice thing is it can be used kind of as a resilience hub as well. And I'm working right now with the solar contractor to put in kind of an education piece. So there'll be some panels and kind of a iPad readout, so some sort of screen to show how much is generating in the moment, as well as just really be an educational piece for the community, teaching people about renewables. So that's pretty exciting. Kind of on a more personal note, we're also doing some city property energy audits with the 2030 district. So looking at all the different city facilities and trying to move that as well. I'm also really excited to say that we have a new member of the office, Fang Wu, who is a really great addition to our team. She has a lot of technical expertise, especially when it comes to grids. So again, I think that'll really, especially everything we're doing now in the 820 plan, really, really happy to have her on. And right now she's really getting caught up on state legislation. So again, having a background, that kind of technical background with grids and kind of the more legal side. So really happy to have her on. So
hey, Josh,
yes.
Since our agenda is fairly light, can we take a minute for Fang and also maybe Simi to introduce themselves?
Yeah, let's see if we can.
Maybe you can unmute them and they can even share their video so we can see them, and that way we know the new members of your team.
All right, so let's go ahead. Here we go. There we go.
Oh, you're muted.
There you go. Yep, you're muted.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you here virtually. My name is Fang Wu, and I am the newly hired energy manager, and I will work with Missy and Josh and Sammy to implement the 820 plan. Before I came here, I worked at Purdue University at the Office of State Utility Forecasting Group. I worked with Indiana utilities on IRP research, planning, and load forecasting with myself. So, and because my husband need to find a job with University of Michigan, so I relocated with him and found the great opportunity with the city, to work for the 820 program. So I'm really excited to being able to become a team member of this wonderful team and see you, everyone here tonight. Thank you.
Great. How about Simi? A few words from Simi. A few of us have met him, but it would be great to get a brief introduction as well.
Yeah, hi all. My name is Simi Barr. I've been with the Office of Sustainability formally since June, though I started as an intern back in January. I graduated from the University of Michigan with my master's from SEAS in May. And a lot of the work I've been doing as the Energy Fellow has been supporting 820 and some of the transportation electrification work that we're doing in the city. So some exciting things, and I look forward to hearing from all of you and forming a relationship that we can build on in the future. Thanks.
Thanks, Fang and Simi. We're glad to have you on the OSI team. Josh, why don't you continue then?
That pretty much wrapped up everything I have, John.
Is that it? Okay. I have one topic that I want to cover, and then we can move on to any other commissioners that want to share anything with the group. So before this meeting, Josh and I, and also Steve Brown and Galen Hardy, who's now facilitating and is the staff liaison to the Environmental Commission, corresponded about commissioner attendance. And I have a few notes here that I wanted to read to you. I wanted to remind commissioners that our bylaws state that commissioners may not miss more than 3 meetings a year. And Josh has reviewed our attendance records, and at least 3 commissioners are not and generally have not been in compliance with that attendance standard over the past few years. In order for the commission and for its working groups to be efficient, effective, and to both serve and represent the residents of Ann Arbor, we need to be engaged and to meet the minimum attendance requirements. This is especially true in the context of our climate emergency and the need to support the implementation of the 820 Climate Action Plan. Frankly, we also want to send a good message to our youth commissioners and demonstrate with our own actions and also just to young members of our community in general that we are serious about protecting the planet for their future. Thus, Josh and I and Steve is going to do the same thing with the Environmental Commission. We're going to do a little better job of monitoring attendance on an ongoing basis instead of just periodically. Commissioners who do not meet the attendance standard will be dismissed and replaced. And commissioners who feel that they are unable to meet the standard are encouraged to think about their situation and inform Josh or me proactively so that residents who are eager and qualified to serve can do so. Indeed, we had a number of really well-qualified youth commissioner applicants for the 2 openings that we had who are eager to serve. And I hope that all of you understand and support this approach. And like I said, the Environmental Commission plans on taking the same approach. Is there any comments or discussions on that or concerns or, I mean, hopefully this is something that the new chair will also support. And this is not something that's dependent on me or Josh or anything else. It's just something we should be doing as good practice. Any other thoughts on the matter? Well, I see all of you in real time, so it doesn't look like there are. So are there any other reports or news from any other commissioners related to energy matters? If not, we can move to the first official agenda point. So Missy is going to give us an update on the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. So Missy, you want to take it over from here?
Sure, John. Hi, everybody. It's great to see all of your faces on this glorious Tuesday night. I hope you all are healthy, happy, and safe in this tumultuous time. Thanks again for spending some of your time with us this evening and giving your input. I was asked by Chair Mercy to come forward and provide some ideas, just ideas, to kind of start a conversation about how we can collaborate more as the Energy Commission and the Office of Sustainability and Innovations as we move 820 forward, which is very, very exciting. Before I do that, I will share my screen in a second. I did actually want to give Simi a little bit of a shout out for something that went live today that a few folks know about, and that is we just launched an electric bike discount program in partnership with one of our local vendors. And so we were able to negotiate about $100 off the cost of an e-bike and $50 for merchandise for those who want to explore e-bikes. That's obviously very timely right now. They're low barrier entry bikes. We're pretty excited about them. And the press release, I think, is going to go out tomorrow. So you'll start to see that circulate. But if you know of folks who have kind of wanted to dabble or really wanted to move forward with an e-bike, there's an opportunity to do that. And we have a lot more information on our website. And depending on COVID, might be setting up some kind of ride-in drives and air quotes to get people on the bike to become much more comfortable with them. So thank you, Simi, for your leadership in moving that forward. So what I'm going to do is share with you all a little bit about where we are with 820 and some ideas for collaboration. Let me just make sure. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see Josh and John. Can you guys see the slides? Thank you. Just the head nod. Okay. So thinking just high level ideas for collaboration. Again, these are not set in stone at all. I'm hoping that what'll happen is
Missy, I see somebody, Josh's email.
Oh, you see Josh's email. That's very fun. Hold on one second. Let's try this again.
Did everybody else have the same problem?
Well, I hope it was a good one. Let me fix this very quick. There we go. All right. So these are only, is this better? Can you see the ideas for collaboration? Great. Perfect. Okay, so again, these are just initial ideas. They are not right. They will be morphed, and your input would help us make them much, much stronger. So use that as kind of a launching point and not something that's already fully established. So for anyone who joined the Environmental Commission, we did this as well. So I think that's just you, John. Sorry, you get to go through this one again. What I basically did is I looked at the existing structure that exists. And I know the Energy Commission is, you're just a few months in really to this new structure. So there's a lot of room here to really kind of think and revisit. And I think the timing is actually pretty great to think about how best you may want to structure based on your individual areas of interest. But we've got this EV working group, which has some exciting stuff to share later tonight. And then there's the built environment working group that had been established. So I took that existing structure and I cross-referenced with A20 and came up with some initial ideas. But I started with, of course, the full commission, right? So as an entire body, the role of the commission is to provide advice and ideas to council and to the city administrator, and of course to us as staff. And so thinking about the entire body and opportunities here, one of the things that we have in our strategy is what we call an A20 opportunity assessment. And if you can imagine, in the next 10 years, there is simply no way that we're going to be able to go to every homeowner and every renter and every business and every visitor in our community multiple times. We need to be very efficient with the number of interactions that we have. And so what this is, and Commissioner Mirsky gets a lot of credit for thinking about this with us earlier, is we need to create some sort of kind of scorecard or path or journey for these different constituents so they understand what it would mean as a homeowner to engage with A20. What would it look like in my house and outside of my house if I'm both thinking about stormwater management and the urban tree canopy, and I'm also thinking about efficiency, and maybe I have a site that's viable for solar, or maybe I don't. And so how do I buy into a community solar program or Acadia Powers program or something else that's on the market? So how do we make this really easy for people to understand, no matter where they're coming at their sustainability journey, that there's an on-ramp for them, and then they're connected to this whole network of other services? This seems simple, but is actually incredibly complex. And we've been working with this for a while, but we really need some help and thought partnership to move these forward. And it's not just for homeowners, it is for renters, it is for our business community, and of course it's for our visitors, whether that are people who are literally coming in for the day, or whether those are students who maybe visit us for a longer period of time, but then transition somewhere else. So how are we hitting these different market segments? We definitely need help continuing to monitor and support state and federal clean energy legislation. This body has done a phenomenal job of keeping its eye on what's happening in Lansing, as well as what's happening in DC. You know, just today, before we started, you might have heard John and I talking about there's something that's happening in Lansing tomorrow, and that came up through kind of the regular channels. And there's a lot of noise. And so having the commission help us pay attention and making sure that we are writing support resolutions to council and to others on things that we really do need to be lending our voice to, that's a really critical role for this body. And I hope that continues. And again, you've done a phenomenal job historically in that sport. Not only for those who've maybe followed or maybe not followed in the A20 plan. So we have the plan itself, which outlines the 7 overarching strategies and the 44 actions, but there are supporting documents. And one of them is a governance document. And the next one falls in the governance document. And that is, we want to have an annual A20 summit. Now this year will probably look different than what we thought it would look like. So we need to think through that, but we really need this whole body, and we'd welcome partnership with this whole body to figure out what does that summit look like, especially the first time, or maybe the first 2 times, since it's likely to look different this year. And at the summit, the point was to celebrate successes, to celebrate the different entities that have contributed to moving A20 forward, and to really be honest and reflect back on what did not work or what could be better as we pivot into the next year of the program. And also, should we be launching any new programmatic activities, that would sort of be the natural place in which those would be launched and kind of unveiled to the whole community itself. So we're going to need a lot of help in thinking about how to structure that and make that wildly successful. And that could be a lot of time or very little. For example, if we're going to give awards, helping us set up a nominating structure and being on a review committee for how do we determine who our A20 Hero of the Years are. those are just some fun examples that we have to think through, and it would be great to get your expertise. The Energy Concierge Program has been around as long as I've been in the community of Ann Arbor. We've talked about this well before coming into the city, and it's also in A20. We need to move it forward. It's time. As I mentioned before, not having the ability to interact with people multiple times in this journey, we've got to make sure it's super, super easy for them to access information. Using my parent moment, I will say we want to make it really easy for people to make the next right choice. Stealing a little bit from Frozen, how do we just make this easy for people? They know who to call and we can get them the information they need to do what they need to do to move forward as opposed to moving back. We have the A20 Ambassadors Program. This is an opportunity. You are all by default being deputized as ambassadors. You will know a lot about what is happening. There will be areas where you want to engage more deeply, but we're also combining in A20. We made the decision, we had a neighborhood ambassador program and a youth ambassador program. And after working with members of our neighborhood community who wanted this to move forward and our youth that really wanted this to move forward, we've decided to merge them. So it'll be an intergenerational ambassador program that'll have some special tracks, but generally the group will be going through this ambassador program together, and we've started developing the curriculum with different stakeholders, and it would be great to have you also both help develop the curriculum, but also contribute for those who want to possibly teach a segment or even go through the ambassadors program. At a minimum, help advertise it so we're bringing more people into the community. In the governance document, we also have a survey, an annual survey that we're going to do to really help understand how we're moving the market, how people are interacting with A20, how we can be better communicators, how we can bring more people into the change movement that we're making happen in real time. And the very first time you run a survey, as all my social scientists know, is always the hardest. And so while it's true that my background is in survey methodology and I think a lot about this, I'm going to need a lot of partners to be thinking through what really are the right questions for the next 10 years. And we can always ebb and flow questions, but there has to be a heartbeat of questions that give us continuity of data over time. And then, of course, continued public engagement and outreach. You know, the e-bike program we just talked about, you sharing that with your networks will help us get capacity. The Solarize program is proving wildly successful. You telling your networks, or maybe even being one of our hosts, is going to help us grow that just by default of who you are and how you engage in this discourse. That was a lot. Those are just some ideas for the full commission. I will share, there is a lot by nature of what you do as an energy commission and default of what we're trying to do with A20. So no shortage of ideas. Our problem is not going to be ideas, I think. It's going to be actually finding just a few to start with. So I'm getting close, I promise you guys. So now going to the specific work groups. For the EV work group.
Hey, Missy, can I interrupt for just a second?
Yes.
Josh, this is for you. I texted Julian Singleton, who's one of our other new youth commissioners. He was having internet problems and he's going to be joining now. So if you could be on the lookout for him, that would be great.
All right, will do.
Okay.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yep, great.
Okay, so the EV group, yeah, the first one you're already doing, but it's continuing to get the EV readiness ordinance over the finish line. We're close, and I just want to pause and thank every single one of you for the amount of time and effort you put into this initiative. I know there have been many iterations. You looked at best practices, you understood and talked to people about what worked and what didn't work, and it has just been a labor of love. And for many of you, I think it's just really close to your heart, and that's very clear. And that wouldn't have moved as fast and be as comprehensive had you not stepped up to be a part of that. So I think all of us at OSI, thank you very deeply for the work that's happened in this work group. We're getting close, and I won't steal anyone's thunder about what's next. So pivot that, but pay attention to what's next and see if you want to keep engaging. Simi is leading, as he mentioned, a lot of our electric vehicle work across the board, and he's inherited from Emily, who has, Emily Drennan, I guess we should make that explicit, is no longer with the office. She and her family have relocated or are on the steps of relocating to the East Coast. So that workload has kind of shifted over to Simi. And so we've inherited a draft EV strategy, and we need to really bring that home now. It's got to be comprehensive, and we have to understand collectively where we're putting electric vehicle charging infrastructure, why, how are all of these pieces fitting together, how are we transitioning our fleet, the private fleet, individual vehicles, et cetera. So there's a lot here, and we certainly would love to bring this and work with the work group on that, should there be interest. We've started conversations around electric vehicle bulk buys. So the e-bike program is one example, but we've been on the phone with other OEMs about running a bulk buy here of actual EV vehicles themselves. And those conversations are going well, but we need to push them harder and faster, especially with the timeline of 2030. So there's lots of opportunity to take a small group in the work group and really move that forward. And then of course, continued public education around EVs. You know, we've got to move the market, and we've got to move the market pretty fast in that space. And how do we do that in the right way? And how are we setting up structure so the entire market can access this and not just the affluent at the top of the market? So there's a bunch here. And there's a bunch in the built environment, of course. So we are working on a trifecta, as I call it, of benchmarking ordinances and transparency ordinances. So we're working at the same time, you know about the time of marketing ordinance, which focuses on single family homeowners. We also, we got feedback from one of our partners, Landlord Association, that they would be really interested in seeing all market segments go at the same time, so no one felt penalized. So we're working on a rental efficiency disclosure ordinance, and we're working on a commercial disclosure ordinance. So we are working with peers around the nation on that, and we certainly could use help from others who are super excited about this. Energy disclosure is sort of the first step, right? Because when you know how you're performing, you can be far more surgical in helping find areas for improvement, but you also can identify your real high performers. And when you identify your real high performers, you can elevate them, you can study them and understand what's working, and they also can become ambassadors for the work. And they have a different relationship. If you find a property manager that's doing a really exceptional job, people are going to listen to a property manager in a different way than they're going to listen to me. And that's important. So we want to understand how and why they got on that journey. So it's not just about, you're not doing a great job with your energy use, let's make it better. It's also the other end of that continuum as well. So you see the time of marketing, we got to move that forward. And then the green rental housing program, Zach Smith on our team has been working on that initiative, and that kind of falls under the others above it. And then we just won a very small convening grant to pull together the different players in the market to explore what it might look like to create a program that focuses on the first 3 strategies in A20. So instead of just doing strategy 1, 2, 3 separate, what if we combined distributed generation with deep energy efficiency improvements and electrification at the same time? And what would it look like across that market segment? So if we did low income housing, what does that look like? How do we perhaps provide wraparound services, leverage weatherization, and then provide grants to do this work with private philanthropic dollars? What does it look like kind of in the middle of the market where maybe there's low interest loans? And what does it look like at full market rate, where people can just go to the market, but they need to have the right choice be presented to them front and center when a contractor walks into their house? So this is a small convening grant to pull together different thought partners to really start building the model and exploring what it would look like to work across that entire market segment, not just with nonprofits, but with the actual contractors and the manufacturers, so that we're building something that's far more holistic. So we just found out about that last week, and Fong and I are on a meeting tomorrow to start moving that forward. So happy to bring in lots of partners in that space. So those were just some of the ideas that we put forward. I tried to focus on the things, like you may have other ideas in A202, and I really want to hear those. I did try to put forward ideas, though, that are in our work plan that we are actively working on, so that momentum, we basically snowball. With your additional capacity, this may move faster and get us to a success. So then we can transition something from program creation to program maintenance and unlock more human capital to be able to move on to the next thing in A20. So that is what I have. Sure.
Thanks, Missy. So I encourage other commissioners to unmute themselves and to comment.
John, this is Chuck. I'm remote. Can Missy's presentation be put on Legistar or someplace?
Yep. Chuck, I'm going to send it to you right now too, just so you can see it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question about the time of marketing. Will we be getting an update about that today, or I didn't see it on the agenda?
Well, that would be, I guess, under the built environment, so we can
okay.
Update then. But as Missy said, well, yeah, maybe I'll just do it right now. The ordinance is basically, it's basically done. So it's not left the working group. It hasn't obviously come to the commission as a whole. It hasn't gone to planning or any of the other commissions. And one of the reasons for that is the comment Missy made is that we didn't want to go to council and to the community with one disclosure and benchmarking ordinance without basically being able to do that uniformly across the various residential sectors, or the various sectors, I should say. So right now, an ordinance is done. It's modeled after similar programs primarily in Portland, but also looking at other places like Austin. So we're essentially ready to roll with that when we're able to do that uniformly across all three areas. Missy, that's still your desire, right?
Yeah, that's still the game plan.
Yeah.
And the others are moving, for what it's worth. They're not, 2 years out. We're moving pretty quick in the other space because the partners are already engaging.
Right. I'd like to pause for just a second. I see that Julian Singleton, our other new youth commissioner, has joined us. You probably all noticed that. And Julian, earlier in the agenda, our other new youth commissioner, Robert George, who you also should see on the screen, he introduced himself. And so we were wondering if you could take 2 minutes or so and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move back and engage with Missy. But I just didn't want you to be hanging there without people knowing who you were.
Yeah, of course. Hi guys, I'm Julian. I'm a junior from Skyline High School, who actually going into my senior year, I guess. I am an athlete, very interested in the environment. Just got back from camping a couple days ago. Really excited to be here, joining the commission. It seems like a really awesome opportunity, and I'm really glad to meet you all.
Great, glad to have you on board, Julian. And by the way, both Julian and Robert, Josh and I have emailed. Our intention is to meet with you, most likely, I guess, under the current circumstances, virtually, to introduce you to the commission and its work, what kind of things we've done in the past, what kind of things we want to do in the future. And so that way you feel like you have a little bit of experience and understanding of what's going on as we go into our next meetings and into working group sessions and things like that. So getting back to Missy's presentation, do others have questions or comments?
Quick question. What are you thinking, Missy, is kind of the best way or some ways for us to get engaged? Do we like through our working groups, or you guys have things in the works that we kind of jump into, or what are your thoughts on those?
It's a great question, and it might be super specific, Jay. If you have like one thing that really like personally jumped out at you, would say the most intuitive way for us is through the working group structure, because we already have them and we can leverage them. If any of you, however, also represent organizations, the partners are also working. It's just a different kind of work the partners are doing. So that's another opportunity for folks to engage should they want to. But for the commission purposes, I think through the working groups, because we have the structure. You guys are easy. This is great. Do I get to have dinner with my family? Are you giving me that gift right now?
I have a few thoughts if nobody else has anything. And that doesn't mean you can't come in later with your own thoughts. So I guess maybe I'll start with a question, Missy. It sounds like for several of these, the office has already started work. And in some cases, it sounds like you would like us to join that activity through the working group structure, potentially even just a couple of people, even individually. It doesn't even have to potentially be through a working group. So in some cases, you're developing something and there would be, let's see, a cooperative or collaborative development with the commission or members of the commission. It sounds like in other cases that there's work that your group will be doing and you will bring to us at a meeting. It'll be an agenda item, we'll get something, and then you'll be presenting something and then getting input. Is that sort of the idea? Or do you see all of this happening outside of commission meetings? How do you see this collaborative work on these various activities?
That's a really good question. And Jay, this might actually be more of like what you were trying to get at. So apologies if I missed it. It's both. There are some things that really are kind of commission level, in which the commission is one of the stakeholders that we would see. Like if we did a stakeholder mapping and said, like, we have to talk to the Energy Commission, just like we have to talk to our affordable housing colleagues about this. And so there's a different conversation. And then there is an opportunity for those who want to go deeper to actually like get into the work, to work with us on, maybe that is a series of background research like we have to do on other, I'm making this up on the spot, so don't take this verbatim, but like other ordinances that exist in other places. And we're going to get on the phone and we're going to talk to people, kind of similar to what the EV group has done or Time of Marketing did. That's going to be like side-by-side work. And there's a difference between we're going to give input and we're going to give our intellectual capital kind of at this one time versus like I'm going to get in there. And so I do think it's broken between those two.
Okay. Yeah, that's the way it struck me too. And I welcome that. And it seems to me that in some cases, this work could also be done in working sessions where things are a little bit looser and where we can do more brainstorming and things like that. So if you have a 3/4 finished product that you're bringing to us and you're just looking for us to be a sounding board or sparring partners, then we can maybe use a working session. We can also use obviously a more formal session as well. Looks like we have a new commissioner there, Josh. A new youth commissioner. So, you know, I think we have a number of different opportunities to collaborate together with you. What I'd like to also remind commissioners is that with working groups, it's my understanding that we only need one commissioner to be on a working group. So we can sort of take this list that Misty has provided us and divide it amongst ourselves. You know, it can be an individual commissioner, it can be one or two or three of us, and we can also recruit members from the community volunteers to work on this. Carlene can talk more about that later when we talk about the EV charging group, but at least half of that group were people from the community that participated in that and were really significant contributors. So I want to remind everybody of that this is not just on us. As I mentioned earlier, we also had a number of really outstanding applicants as youth commissioners, both for the environmental and the energy commission. And I think looking at that group collectively, depending on what we're working on or what they're working on, we might be able to recruit some of them. So this is not something that's just falling solely on you know, those of us that we see on the screen and the few commissioners that weren't able to join us tonight. Other comments, questions for Missy?
You all know how to find me. So I'm really looking, oh, Bridget.
Sorry, I do have a question. So for these various opportunities to engage with this plan, how are we going to, what's the process for us indicating what we're interested in and what's the timeline?
So I think that's to be determined, and Commissioner Mirsky, I'm going to put you slightly on the spot on this one to see how you want to do it. The Environmental Commission decided to have a work session, which is actually going to be on Thursday, to dive more deeply into that and really understand their priorities. I think if you liked the structure we proposed, we can just bring it up through the work groups as is. And in a work group meeting, we could say, okay, anyone on the EV work group, let's talk about what comes next. Anyone on the built environment work group, we could do that. Or we could have a separate work session. I think it's sort of, this is a case where we'll work with you to figure out how you get to that structure that makes sense for you.
Hey, Josh, I have a question for you. I don't have it handy. So I know generally who's on the EV group, because that group has been meeting regularly, and the number of people that have participated are either as commissioners that are on the screen, plus we have a couple of people that also called in. The built environment group really didn't get going all that much, partly because of COVID too. Do you remember by chance who was on the built environment working group? I know I was a member. Seems to me Commissioner Clevey was, Bridget was, I think Shoshana, I can't remember if Shoshana was or not. Do you remind us? Can you remind us?
Yeah, I'd have to, we can go back. But yeah, just off the top of my head, Bridget was, like you
Mike
said.
Schreiber. I think Mike Schreiber.
Mike Schreiber was also on it. John, you were on it. I think Wayne, obviously from just from the public side. So yeah, I think that was pretty much the core.
I had wanted to be a part of that, but I had a conflict at the time that it had been meeting, but if the time's going to change or the conflict I had is no longer happening because of COVID, so I would love to be looped back into that.
We'll add you into the email groups.
I also would be interested in working on that working group.
Okay, great. So Missy put me on the spot. Josh, I actually think I was looking at something on Legistar earlier today. Is our next meeting scheduled to be a working session?
Yes.
So my suggestion would be that Missy is sending this out. She said she would share it with everyone. I would encourage everyone to look at that and then come prepared to the working session, and then we really get into do we stay just with those two working groups in that list. In that session, we can also then talk about whether or not we have sub-working groups that might be able to take a topic, or each one take an individual topic, or take a topic that might be potentially broken up into two different topics. We talked about disclosure and benchmarking. So we have the home part of that already done. And then there's two other elements of that. There's the one for multifamily, and then there's the one for commercial. So that potentially could be two working groups working on somewhat of a similar topic that might report up into the built environment group. So I'd ask that you give some thought to that, and then we all can talk about that and feedback then to Missy. And the output of that meeting would be essentially a report back to OSI, what we think we can bite off and accomplish, and potentially then also even defining a timeline when we think we might be able to do that. How does that sound? Does anybody have other or better ideas?
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan for the work session.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that any of us saw Missy's presentation ahead of time, so this is all relatively fresh. Obviously, some of this is an extension of the plan, the 820 plan, and what we're doing right now. But I think it'd be good to digest this and to think about it. And the other thing that, and maybe Josh and I can send this out, or we'll just add some notes to what Missy sends out. I'd like you to also think about what you might want to take a leadership role on, and who you might be able to recruit to work on a particular topic to you that's of interest to you. So if any of us know other students or know other professionals in the community that have an energy background, or that might be interested in working on one of these, for example, Anna Stefanopoulou spent a lot of time working on the EV charging group. We had several other residents that we could talk about later. Carlene can. So definitely recruiting people will, multiply our impact, I think, if we're able to do that. And in the end, it'll help selling things to the community.
And John, I just sent out, I'll tell the Energy Commissioner, so you should have now, Missy forwarded along the actual presentation, so we should all have the PDF.
Okay, great. Did it get to Robert and to Julian as well?
I will double check.
Actually, something just popped into my head. Councilmember Eaton, I have a question for you. So there is one other vacancy that's not a youth vacancy. And I know that there were some mayor, board, and commission nominations that were considered on the council meeting last night. Do you know by chance, or do you recollect whether there were any new council people, or excuse me, commissioners appointed to energy, or were they discussed?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. Okay. So I will follow back up with the mayor because I had made a recommendation based on all of the applications and resumes that had been sent in. And so I don't know where that stands right now. I hadn't heard back from him. So I thought possibly it may have come up in the commission meeting last night.
So council did pass a resolution kind of authorizing commissions to, among ourselves, form a subcommittee to make recommendations on appointments to our own commission.
Ah, good.
So if you guys want to do that, I have access to all of the applications that come in for appointments to boards and commissions, and I would be willing to meet with a subgroup to go over who's applied. Also, you know, we should be encouraging anybody we know to apply for boards and commissions. So.
Does anybody have a particular interest in that?
I'd be interested in that.
Okay, I'll circle back around with you, Ember, Bridget, and Jack. Or Bridget, do you have a question?
No, I was saying I would be interested in that too.
Okay, so it sounds like right now we're going to have a homework assignment to look at Missy's proposal, and then in the working session, come up with a plan of attack. Who's going to work on what, and who's going to take hopefully a leadership role, who we might recruit, and try to maybe set some timelines. How's that sound? Okay, so we just have a couple of things left for tonight's meeting. We have committee updates, but before that we have chair elections. So with the vacancy from Shoshana, as I mentioned earlier, I'm acting chair. That's why I'm leading tonight's meeting. And what we'd like to do then is open up the meeting for nominations for the chair of the commission, and then also we will be also voting for a new vice chair of the commission. So I'd like to open that up to anyone for nominations, and then for a second, and then after that we'll have discussion, and then we'll take votes. I think Bridget was first.
I would like to nominate John Mirsky for chair.
I'll second.
I'm willing to accept the nomination. Do we have other nominations? And I think there's other very good qualified people, so don't hesitate to nominate somebody else.
I'd like to nominate Carlene.
I'll second that.
Do we have any other nominations? Okay, how about any discussion? So maybe just go ahead, Bridget.
Oh, I'm just, Carlene, did you accept that nomination?
Thank you for asking. I would graciously decline the nomination.
I kind of expected that.
Do we have any other nominations then based on that?
Well, I'd like to ask if anybody else is interested in serving. I hate to go through the whole roster here and nominate people who are unwilling.
So let me make my feelings clear. I'm willing to serve as chair. I'm not particularly angling for this. I don't really want to be in a position where it's perceived that I'm political or want to take over or anything like that. So if anybody else is interested, it will not hurt my feelings. I'm more than happy to serve as chair. But if there's others that are interested, you won't hurt my feelings at all. Josh, okay, go ahead, Bridget.
Thank you, Jen. I know that for many of us, the struggle is a time one. And I mean, you were asking for folks who are interested, and I'm open to seconding or nominating any other commissioner who feels they have the time and is interested in, now do we, in either position, but I'm sort of guessing the way the conversation is going that we're now looking for a nominee for vice chair? Or are we doing this one at a time?
Josh, my understanding is we do this one at a time. Yeah. Jack, is that right from what you understand? We're not doing both at the same time, right?
I don't think there's any particular rule on this. As I recall, the council still hasn't passed the Energy Commission bylaws. So
no, we followed up with Christopher Cross. We've yet to hear back from him. But yes,
we're still winging it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what do we take then, Josh? Do we take a vote?
Yeah. If you guys want, you can go ahead and do a roll call vote on your nomination. So would you like me to lead that, John?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Okay.
I would suggest, because there's only one nominee, that we can do it by a team.
Yeah, okay. Save some time. Okay, all in favor of John Mirsky becoming the next chair of the Energy Commission, say aye.
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 I accept.
And then I think all of those who dissent.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for your confidence in me, and I'll do the best I can. So if we can move on to vice chair, we'd like to open up nominations for vice chair. And I would start maybe myself by asking Carlene, would you be willing to serve as vice chair?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would like to nominate Carlene or Jack. I guess you were doing that.
I'll second that.
Okay. Did we have a third or a fourth? I'm just kidding. Do we have other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Jay, actually.
I think I'm going to graciously decline my time commitments right now, but I do definitely want to get more involved in getting into some of the weeds on the 820 stuff.
No, Jay, we all remember that. We're gonna have you lead a working group or something then.
I'm tempted to nominate one of our youth members, but because they're so new, I think that they should learn a little bit before we throw them into a leadership. Yeah. So
we can do that with a working group as well. So I guess we have a similar situation. Can we then have just have all the commissioners indicate their vote with all in favor of Carlene then as vice chair? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So Carlene, congratulations. You have to work with me.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us then to the committee update section of our agenda. So The first is housing and the built environment. We talked about that a little bit. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
Well, John, and I am wondering, given everything with 820 and our next meeting being a, kind of a, sorry, to make sure everyone can hear me. Given the way that we were supposed to do kind of a working session, I wonder if it makes sense, since there's probably going to be some reorganization, restructuring going on, unless someone has something to kind of report out based off of these subcommittees, whether it makes sense just to kind of hold off until then to talk about restructuring and all that.
I would say the one thing that are probably worthwhile discussing briefly is the EV charging ordinance, because there's been some interaction with the Planning Commission on that, and I'd asked Carlene to update everybody on the status of that. Then I can give a very brief update on the lighting ordinance and on the Environmental Commission, and then we can open it up for any other comments or questions. How's that? Go ahead, Carlene.
All right, thank you very much, John. The electric vehicle readiness ordinance has been mentioned already several times during this evening's meeting, and I'm sure most of you are getting, who haven't been on the commission, new members, as well as who haven't been keeping track of what's been happening. There has been a lot of activity with regards to the development of the ordinance in its present and final form as it stands right now. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. I'll give a little bit of background and describe the ordinance, but first I just want to let you know that where we are with it is we're getting close to the finish line, just like Missy had said. It is has been passed unanimously by the Planning Commission, and then it's being formatted and prepared to be presented to City Council. The date for when it will come before City Council has not been announced yet. And I believe that it still needs to go through legal, the final review of it through the legal department. So let me just back up a little bit, and for those of you who are not familiar with the ordinance, I'm just going to give just a quick overview of the ordinance here. The ordinance, the electric vehicle ordinance, it's a zoning-based ordinance. It's going to be located in the City of Ann Arbor's Unified Development Code. And under Title V, the zoning and planning definition, zoning and planning section. There are three primary sections of the ordinance. There's the definition section, and there are amendments that are going to be within the development standards of the Unified Development Code. And then within that section, there's a significant, it's like the meat of the ordinance is the parking table. And I'll explain what that means. So we're basically adding 9 new terms to the definition sections of the Unified Development Code, and they all have to do and pertain to terminology relating to electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging stations and electric vehicle infrastructure. The big definitions in there, I'm not going to go through every single one, are the 3 primary levels of electric vehicle readiness that are going to be mandated for new construction. And so this ordinance is to be applied to new construction and projects that require what's called a site plan. Most folks know about what a site plan is, and it's basically a comprehensive, detailed graphic and data layout of literally a piece of property and how it's going to be developed. So the 3 basic primary levels of electric vehicle readiness that will be mandated are EV capable, EV ready, and EV installed. EV capable, and I'm listing these in order of least complex to the most complex, which involves having an electric vehicle charging station installed. So EV capable is there, we're requiring installed electrical panel capacity with a dedicated branch circuit and a cable raceway that's capped for future EV parking spaces. And it's basically that translates to going all the way from your electrical panel with conduit, and then it's empty, and then it's in with a cap at the end. Then EV ready is the term that is defined by an installed electrical panel capacity with a dedicated branch circuit that includes a conductor, which is a wire, inside of a raceway or direct buried or terminated in the approved method in a junction box for an EV parking space. And then finally, the highest here is the EV installed, which is, again, installed electrical panel capacity with a dedicated branch circuit, which includes the conductor or wire, and a raceway or direct buried, and a EV SES charging station capable of providing charge energy to an EV parking space. So I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, and you'll see how it applies. Within the actual Unified Development Code, within the development standards, which I mentioned earlier, there's a section on parking standards. And there will be a number of sections that we are either amending or adding to this. And so first of all, this ordinance is required for all new construction. And basically all parking requirements for every single new property must include electric vehicle requirements, infrastructure installation requirements as well. There are also requirements that we covered everything from parking space design to protection of the charging stations, to the Americans with Disabilities Act and how the parking spaces need to conform with the electric vehicle charging parking spaces need to conform to the ADA Act and other details. We have included graphics that demonstrate what it is that we're requiring. And then at the end, we have the parking table. So within the Unified Development Code, there's this big table that lists for every single property use how many parking spaces are required for like single family homes, apartment complexes, condominiums, townhouses, shopping malls, shopping centers, small shopping like stores, you know, like it all depends on like the square footage of the built property and usage for how many parking spaces are required. And what we have done is we have added another column to this table that provides a percentage of required EV capable or EV ready or EV installed parking spaces. Now, a lot of the work that we did over the last, and this project started about 2 years ago, back in mid-late 2018, when our team first formed. I'll talk a little bit about the team in a little while. I'm now in the weeds with this parking table thing. Let me just finish this thought out here real quick. So the parking table, the percentages that we looked at how a location will be used. So single family homes, person who owns an electric vehicle, they're going to want to come home and with their vehicle and plug in and charge it. And there will be time for them to charge it whenever the vehicle is not being used. For the most part, it's folks coming home after work. At the end of the day, they can plug it in and charge it overnight. And we have basically the parking table requires 100% access to electric vehicle charging infrastructure for single family homes and for multiple unit dwellings. So for single family homes, for example, the requirement is for EV ready, which means basically having the wire installed. For multi-unit dwellings, the percentage is, it's 100% like 1-to-1 for every single dwelling unit, but we're requiring a different percentage of EV capable versus EV ready versus EV installed, based on there's like going to be a ramp up that is going to be matching demand for EV charging as time progresses and more electric vehicles are coming onto the scene, are made available, are affordable, and then the adoption arc is increasing. So that's how we designed it. And then we did the same thing for, like for example, retail, commercial spaces where most folks many times will just be there for just a very small periods of time, except for employees. So there's a smaller percentage of electric ready, EV ready charging spaces that we are requiring. So that's basically the overview. At any time anyone is interested in asking me a question, please jump in. So let me back up here. This effort has been a massive team effort. There have been, let's see, it's just as far as energy commissioners, we have Jay Zonker, who's on the team, John Mursky, Wayne Appleyard, you know, was one of the initiators, former energy commissioner, was a big time, you know, spearheader of this effort, and as well as other community members, as John was saying, like local residents. Anna Stephanopoulos, I recruited her November of 2018. I'm so glad. Thank you, Anna, for accepting and being part of this group. Chuck Hookham is also playing a very important role, Commissioner Hookham, on the team. And we've had folks who have different expertises in the area of electric vehicle charging, in electric engineering, as well as just people who've had just like a passion and interest for electric vehicle, for EVs, EV enthusiasts, owners, folks in the industry. Do you want to say add anything to that, John, so far, or Jay? Anything that so far? All right. Yeah. Okay. So at this point in time, we are looking forward to any feedback that we're going to be getting from the legal department, and then it goes on to council. And in the meantime, one of the things that's really important to note is like we have actually pulled what we have created here has been I have not mentioned Charles Griffith too from the Ecology Center has played a really key role in the development of the ordinance as well. Thank you so much, Charles. I like to take credit for recruiting you, but maybe it wasn't me. But regardless, so for as a background, we just didn't invent this out of the blue. We actually surveyed all the existing ordinances we could possibly find. Emily Drennan, former OSI team member who Missy said has moved out east, she was really instrumental in this entire process as well. We actually had phone interviews with folks from the city of Atlanta, from Ohio, from Denver, and asking them how they went through the process of developing their ordinances and implementing them. We also have sent out draft ordinances to different stakeholders. We got input from local contractors, developers on what their concerns were. We brought in DTE to address concerns about grid capacity. Who else have we brought in? So we've been actively engaged in really making sure that concerns from multiple parties are being addressed. We had, yeah.
I'm going to ask you to try to make it a little briefer. Since this has already been passed by Planning Commission and is now with Council, maybe you can concentrate on some of maybe the issues that have been raised, particularly for Councilman Eaton's benefit, and as well as for commissioners. Then we can also just leave it where if there's any open questions that people can then circle back with you, because we've had some updates on this, over the course of the last several months. So if that would be okay, I'd appreciate that.
Great. So I was just about to mention one of the questions that we actually did in one of our Energy Commission meetings was asked with regards to renewable energy being tied to this mandate. And after the working group, we took the question very, very seriously, and we looked at every possible angle of how we could require integration of renewable energy into this ordinance. And based on first of all, the legality of such a mandate, as well as the logistics of enforcement and the cost and the associated cost. Those are two really significant elements that would have it not be an advisable component to add to this ordinance. More recently, we received some concerns with regards to the threshold of percentages that are in the parking table, and in particular for the zones and the uses that are like multi-unit dwellings as well as hotels and Airbnbs. So in the parking table for multi-unit dwellings, let me just really quick pull up the percentage so that I can have those right at my fingertips. Apologize, I did have this up here real quick. Okay, so for in the use for lodging, we are recommending the 25% EV capable, 50% EV ready, and 25% EV installed. And the justification for that is pretty, okay, all right, so the justification is folks come in, they've been traveling, they're gonna be staying, residing for at least one night, and they're gonna wanna plug in at night and be ready to charge or to leave with a full charge the next morning. So at the 25% of parking spaces of a new build hotel or bed and breakfast to have EV charging stations should cover the needs or the demand for electric vehicle charging for the customer or clients of those establishments. Okay, so with regards to multi-unit dwellings, the parking table, we are requiring 65% of EV capable, 25% EV ready, and 10% EV installed. And again, we're looking at the trend of electric vehicle adoption, as well as both the right of every dwelling unit to have its own access to its own charging station, and not to discriminate, from different people who are in a dwelling unit, to give everybody access. And so beginning with 10% for a new build, new construction, multi-unit dwelling, having 10% of the parking spaces have EV charging spaces, EV charging stations, we determined that would be a very good initial level to require. And then the EV ready parking spaces can be upgraded over time as demand increases. And those were the big concerns that we've seen recently, and that's how we've been addressing them. And that's it for my update. Thank you.
Commissioner Zucker or Hookham, do you have anything to add?
Just a quick comment. So these are just for new construction, but hopefully when this passes, it'll set kind of a precedence for developers and things like that, and hopefully eventually lead to adoption in existing construction and things like that, and set a model for expansion in the future.
And I think, John, to add to Jay's report, that we're going to create an implementation guide of some nature that will help in the way of adopting this, so the people, lay people, homeowners, business owners, city, all have kind of a go-to guide that will help them through the process of installing such. So adoption is the key, and hopefully will make it easier.
Good point. I would just add that a lot of this is driven in terms of the percentages that Carlene mentioned, from the fact that we believe it's a lot less, and we know from studies done elsewhere, it's a lot less expensive to put in empty conduit right from the very beginning, as opposed to digging up a parking lot or having to go into a building and have to retrofit this. So simply having the bare minimum structure in place, putting in a panel that allows someone to add circuit breakers later, or putting in just buried wire or buried conduit, basically just empty tubing, that cost is really minimal. Whereas opposed to if that has to be done retroactively, it really doesn't make sense. And that's really only being done in places where people live and want to charge overnight, or like Carlene said, are going to a destination, they have accommodation there, and they want to be able to charge and then continue their trip either back home or to the next point. I don't know if anybody has any questions for Carlene or comments.
So was there any discussion of cost?
Yes, there was. Carlene, you want to talk about that, or?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll add to anything that I think of. I'll add to what you're saying, John.
Yeah. So the city of San Francisco did a detailed study of cost for doing, and we took those costs and we took local labor rates and we adjusted those to the Ann Arbor market, and putting in an EV, what we call capable, which is basically just space in the box in the conduit. That is about 20 to 25% of the cost of doing it in terms of, well, let's just say in general, doing things later is at least 4 times the cost of doing it upfront. We also, the planning department got input from developers, and so this has also been run by developers. Carlene also looked at roughly 20 projects, I think, Carlene, that were submitted to planning. How many was it?
It was like 23, 24.
23, and looked at the number of parking spaces, what would have been the cost had we had the ordinance in place, what that would be in terms of a % increase in the cost of the development. Carlene, I can let you talk to that, and you and Jack can maybe go back and forth depending on the level of detail that he's interested in.
Well, so it was a challenging project to actually establish an accurate estimate for the cost of the installations based on the formulas that we had identified and determined. But what's really important to note is that the contractors were mostly concerned about the cost for the grid capacity. And so having DTE get involved in the conversation, that was, they gave us a threshold of kilowatt size of load based on electric vehicle use, above which they would then do what they call a grid analysis and determine if there was going to need, if there would be a necessary upgrade to the grid, which would be a much higher cost. The developers didn't seem it was that significant as far as installing the like the EV capable infrastructure or EV ready, as much as the concern was for the grid upgrades.
Yeah. The charging units themselves, or the conduit and things like that, those were in the low single digit impact to overall development cost, Jack. And our belief is, especially we're going to start to see a lot of new models come up with the next model year, that we're going to see significant availability of EVs, and to be able to go into a development and do this retroactively is really, really expensive. So what we're trying to do is be proactive, looking at adoption rates, looking at upfront costs versus retroactive installation costs. We were very attuned to the concern about affordability in Ann Arbor, as this is just one more mandate on top of everything else that we ask developers to do. But this is something, if you look out 10 years, 20 years, everybody, we think, certainly nearly everybody in Ann Arbor is going to be driving an electric vehicle, either a new one or a used one. And so if all these users are going to be having electric vehicles, they're going to need to be charging those vehicles. We think that it makes sense to plan for that now.
Okay, thank you. I just want to point out that the A20 plan actually has a different goal, and that goal is to abandon vehicles for mass transit, bicycling, and walking. So, we're at kind of cross purposes here. I agree with you. I think more people are going to adopt electric vehicles than mass transit, but that's the goal that we've set. So we have to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah. So, obviously, there's a 50% reduction of vehicle miles traveled that is targeted within the city of Ann Arbor. Given the fact that there are 85,000 people commuting into Ann Arbor every day, some of those people will be in their own vehicles. Some of the A20 reduction is targeting those people, and hopefully those people will carpool, come to a park and ride, use public transportation, etc. But certainly people that are in Ann Arbor that are using the kinds of facilities that are in the, that in the use cases in the parking table, those kinds of uses will probably not go away. And, I think there's also discussions, my understanding is to look at some of the requirements in the parking table themselves and allow developments with a significantly reduced number of spaces. And if those space counts go down, the percentages in the numbers then the EV charging spaces also goes down. So we took that into consideration as well. I think we'll follow Josh's input. Just two real quick updates from my side. Lighting ordinance that we've talked about many times. It's in front of the Planning Commission tonight. They're meeting at the same time we are. So others on the working group that I served on are attending that meeting, and it's already been reviewed in a working session, and this is now up for formal approval in the Planning Commission. We anticipate that is going to be approved by a Planning Commission tonight. And then the only other committee update is the one report that I have from the Planning Commission. Just a couple of real brief points on that. As I mentioned already, Emily Drennan has left. Galen Hardy is taking over that. I think many of you know Galen. We had a similar presentation from Missy about things that the Environmental Commission can work on and contribution that would contribute to the A20 plan. And I'll get to that in a second and what we're going to work on. And then there was a solid waste update. First of all, some good news. The diversion rate for the city of Ann Arbor went up from historical levels of around typically 29 to 31% for the last many years. And it's now at 33%. Almost all of that was due to improvements in the residential sector. So there's still a lot of opportunity in the commercial sector. As many of you might have seen in the news, last night, council approved the restart of the city's MRF. There's going to be a 10-year contract with RAA to upgrade that facility and to start operating it again. And then also there was a report from solid waste staff that the city is currently issued or has issued an invitation to bid on residential recycling based on the recommendations in the solid resource management plan update. And those, they were a number, I can't remember exactly the number, but there were roughly a half a dozen proposals that were received, and those are being evaluated right now. And there was also, by the way, all this is can be viewed on Legistar. There was a presentation on integrated pest management, pests being both insect pests as well as weeds and things like that, and recommendations on how residents can do a better job and more environmentally friendly job of controlling those kinds of quote unquote pests, and outreach efforts to get that out to the community. And then finally, like us, there's two primary working groups, one focused on natural features, and there's one group led by Christopher Graham that's working on landmark and heritage tree ordinance. I've mentioned that before. Jack and I attend those meetings. And then the other working group is a solid waste working group, and there's going to be two focus areas. One is to develop a proposal on how to better measure and then implement an ordinance on construction and demolition waste. So some of you may not be aware of the fact that when we talk about our diversion, we don't count any of the construction or demolition waste. So if the roadway is torn up, if a building is torn down, if there's a dumpster outside of a construction site, none of that tonnage is included in our solid waste reporting right now. So there's going to be an attempt to control that and hopefully divert that in the future. And then the other thing is a significant greenhouse gas are the gases that are included in refrigerants, refrigeration systems, both air conditioning units, refrigerators, commercial refrigeration. And we want to try to, that's already governed by the EPA, but we want to do some work to make sure that those regulations are properly being followed here in the area. So that's what happened in the Environmental Commission.
I'd just like to note, in follow-up to something John mentioned, the invitation to bid on the residential recycle collection is complete. Recycle Ann Arbor submitted the lowest bid. The next step will be to do an internal audit to see whether the city believes that it could perform that same work less expensively internally using city employees. And so that'll come forward probably in September or October.
Thank you very much. Any other updates from anyone else regarding any working groups or committees? Otherwise, we'll move on to public input. So I need to read this statement again. I'll paraphrase it. People can speak up to 3 minutes. Call 1-888-788-0099 and enter the number 924-5796-9823. And then Josh will allow you to speak, and he's going to recognize you with the last 3 digits of your phone number. When you want to speak, press *9. And like I said, that'll be a hand raising that Josh will see, and then he will allow you to speak. So if there's anybody that's attending the meeting on phone or virtually, this is an opportunity to give public comment again. And we'll wait for a few minutes, or a few seconds, I should say. Like I said, there may be a delay. Josh, let us know what you see coming in. If not, then we'll move on to items for the next meeting agenda, which is a working session.
All right. Yeah, it looks like there's no one raising their hand, so I think we're okay.
Okay. Good. So our next meeting is a working session, and that is going to be on, so since we didn't meet on the northern rhythm, this time it's not as far out. We're going to be meeting on August 11th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So that's a working session. That will also be virtual. So some of the formalities that we had tonight will fall by the wayside. And we already have one topic, and that is to look at Missy's suggestions on how we might take on tasks that align with A20. Does anybody have anything else that they would like us to accommodate in the next meeting's agenda? Okay, doesn't sound like there's anything. One thing that I'd like to continue is, Carlene, I will reach out to you before the meeting and do the same thing that Shoshana did with me, and that is just brainstorm about meeting logistics and things like that. And then we can circle back with Josh to any input that we might have so that the meeting is well prepared. Okay. With that then, I adjourn the meeting at 7:48. I thank everybody on the commission for attending tonight, and also for those people from the community that called in. And again, Robert and Julian, welcome to the commission. I hope you didn't get blown away entirely by all this new lingo and everything that we're doing. Like I said, Josh and I, and maybe Carlene too, we can figure out a time where we can go over past business, the kinds of things that we do, go over your questions, and that way you can ask questions that may have baffled you and come up tonight, but hopefully we can address those then. So,
Josh, have you given Robert and Julian a copy of the draft bylaws?
I have not. We were planning to create a packet. So John and I were having conversations back and forth to kind of do a welcome introduction. And I think it's something, Wayne did when he was chair, and I think it's something we'll probably start up again with all new commissioners, just having kind of a meeting, giving them important documents, making sure that any questions are answered. So I really look forward to doing that.
Orientation would be really, really beneficial to get you guys just jumping right in as fast as possible.
yeah. And we apologize, frankly, we didn't do that ahead of this meeting. Some of these positions just got ironed out here in the last week or so. So, and then the other thing is, I know Steve Brown is trying to do the same thing with the Environmental Commission, so we'll probably collaborate with both Steve and Galen and use the best of all of their input as well, so that we come up with hopefully some joint best practices between us.
Great idea.
So before we go, we have one vacancy and we have two members whose terms ended May 31st, Bridget and Ember. So if Josh will follow up and get those onto the council agenda to renew their appointments, that would be great. And if somebody wants to try to arrange a Zoom meeting to discuss there must be a dozen applications pending right now. So we could go through those if you wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah, and we've reached out to Bridget and Ember, and we're trying to get all that stuff squared away.
Yeah, I assume they want to continue, and it's mostly just us getting it onto a council agenda so that we can confirm it.
Yeah.
And if I make the motion to do it all in a one-step process, I think it takes 8 votes to do it just one meeting rather than having 2 readings. Then there won't be any lapse.
Exactly.
And I don't think there's any controversy to reappointing these 2 members. So. Great, thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thanks everybody, and looking forward to seeing you then on the 11th of August.
And Robert,
Thanks.
You a phone call, and I apologize for not getting back to you, but I think you were happy with the outcome last night, right?
I was very happy, council member. Thank you. And I know you're a very busy guy, so you're totally good. I look forward to talking with you sometime soon, though, about some next steps anyways. But
all right. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Talk to you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Josh.